In today's society, the art of silent outsmarting has become more valuable than ever before. Friedrich Nietzsche, one of history's most profound philosophers, understood that true power often lies in what remains unsaid rather than what is explicitly expressed. His philosophical insights reveal that communication happens on multiple levels simultaneously, with nonverbal cues often carrying more weight than the words themselves. The ability to influence others without speaking directly to their conscious mind represents one of the highest forms of social intelligence. By mastering Nietzschean techniques of observation and psychological insight, you can develop an almost supernatural ability to read situations and control outcomes without uttering a single word. This ancient wisdom, when applied correctly, can transform your personal and professional relationships. What you're about to discover are the psychological principles that the most influential people throughout history have intuitively understood and applied. These aren't simply tactics or tricks. They represent a profound understanding of human nature that Nietzsche spent his life uncovering and documenting. The philosopher believed that those who truly comprehend human psychology hold the keys to a form of power that transcends conventional authority. Human nature reveals itself constantly through subtle indicators that most people fail to notice. Nietzsche observed that humans unconsciously telegraph their intentions, desires, and weaknesses through micro-expressions, body positioning, and behavioral patterns. By developing a heightened awareness of these signals, you gain an almost unfair advantage in any social interaction. The first principle of silent outsmarting involves becoming an exceptional observer. Rather than immediately participating in conversations or situations, take time to watch carefully how others interact. Notice who defers to whom, who interrupts, who seeks approval through eye contact, and who dominates the physical space. These dynamics reveal the invisible power structures at play before anyone has properly analyzed them. Most people enter social situations focused entirely on what they want to say or how they're being perceived. By instead adopting a stance of curious observation without judgment, you'll begin noticing patterns others miss entirely. This silent gathering of information provides the foundation for all other techniques of nonverbal influence. The concept of psychological mirroring represents one of Nietzsche's most powerful insights into human behavior. People naturally feel comfortable with and trust those who subtly reflect their own mannerisms, speech patterns, and values. By carefully mirroring selected aspects of someone's communication style, their pace, energy level, or physical positioning, you create an unconscious bond that bypasses their rational defenses. However, this technique requires extreme subtlety. Obvious mimicry will be detected and create distrust. The art lies in absorbing someone's essence and reflecting it back in a way that feels natural and authentic. When done properly, the other person experiences a sense of familiarity and connection without understanding why, putting you in a position of silent influence. Nietzsche recognized that this tendency toward psychological resonance stems from our tribal evolutionary history. Humans instinctively seek similarity as a signal of safety and belonging. By strategically embodying elements of another person's communication style, you're speaking directly to their unconscious mind in a language more powerful than words. The power of strategic silence cannot be overstated in Nietzschean philosophy. Most people feel uncomfortable with silence and rush to fill it with words, often revealing information they hadn't intended to share. By maintaining comfortable silence at key moments, you create a vacuum that others feel compelled to fill, often to their disadvantage and your benefit. This technique proves particularly effective during negotiations or any situation where information represents power. When someone makes a statement or offer, simply maintaining eye contact and remaining silent often leads them to elaborate further, modify their position, or reveal additional details. The discomfort of silence becomes a tool that extracts information and concessions without you saying anything at all. Mastering comfortable silence requires internal discipline. You must become someone who doesn't fear pauses in conversation, but rather appreciates them as opportunities. This calm, centered presence creates an aura of authority that others unconsciously respond to and respect. Body language mastery forms the cornerstone of nonverbal influence. Nietzsche understood that our physical positioning communicates more about our true thoughts and feelings than our words ever could. By consciously controlling your nonverbal signals, you can project authority, trustworthiness, or approachability, depending on what the situation requires. Start with posture. Standing or sitting straight with shoulders back projects confidence without aggression. Hand positioning reveals psychological states. Visible, open hands suggest honesty, while hidden hands may signal deception or discomfort. Eye contact balance is crucial. Too little suggests dishonesty or submission, while too much can feel aggressive or uncomfortable. Most importantly, learn to recognize incongruence between someone's words and their body language. When these don't align, the body always tells the truth. This awareness allows you to identify deception or discomfort that others miss, giving you information advantages in any interaction. The principle of controlled emotional investment represents another powerful Nietzschean strategy. The person who cares less about an outcome typically holds more power in any dynamic. By maintaining emotional detachment while others become increasingly invested, you gain significant psychological leverage without saying a word. This doesn't mean becoming cold or unfeeling. Rather, it involves maintaining perspective and avoiding emotional reactions that might compromise your position or reveal your priorities. When everyone else in a room becomes emotionally activated, the calm, centered person naturally assumes a position of authority and influence. Practice developing this skill by identifying situations where you typically become emotionally triggered. By recognizing these patterns and preparing alternative responses, you gradually develop the ability to remain composed under circumstances that would derail others. This composed presence speaks volumes about your inner strength. Strategic timing represents an often overlooked element of nonverbal influence. Nietzsche recognized that when something happens, often matters more than what happens. By developing an intuitive sense of timing, knowing exactly when to enter a conversation, when to make eye contact, when to smile, or when to exit, you control the rhythm of interactions in ways others can't identify but strongly feel. Consider the difference between someone who immediately responds to every message versus someone who responds thoughtfully but less predictably. The second person naturally commands more attention and consideration simply through the timing of their interactions. This principle applies equally to physical presence, digital communication, and decision-making. Perfect timing cannot be reduced to a simple formula. It requires developing sensitivity to the emotional and attentional states of others. By learning to read a room or situation and adjusting your timing accordingly, you create maximum impact with minimal effort. The essence of Nietzschean efficiency. The psychology of space utilization offers another dimension of silent influence. How you position yourself physically in relation to others communicates volumes about your perceived status and authority. Those who unconsciously command more space through stance, gestures, or strategic positioning are automatically perceived as more confident and influential. Notice how high-status individuals naturally position themselves in advantageous locations within rooms, near exits, at the heads of tables, or in positions that allow them to observe everyone else. Without saying a word, these spatial choices communicate authority and control. By consciously adopting similar strategies, you shift how others perceive you without a single word being spoken. This doesn't require aggressive territory claiming. Subtle adjustments in how you enter rooms, where you choose to sit or stand, and how much space your gestures occupy can dramatically change your perceived authority. These nonverbal cues speak directly to primitive parts of the human brain that process territorial information. Understanding psychological reactance, the human tendency to resist perceived threats to freedom, provides another powerful tool for silent influence. Nietzsche noted that direct attempts to control others often backfire, creating resistance even when compliance would benefit the person. By creating the perception of freedom and choice, you can guide outcomes while avoiding triggering this resistance. In practice, this means mastering the art of suggestion rather than direction, physical positioning that leaves clear exit paths, body language that invites rather than demands, and facial expressions that convey curiosity rather than expectation, all communicate respect for autonomy. This silent approach bypasses defensive reactions and makes others more receptive to your unspoken influence. The strategic application of this principle involves creating scenarios where others feel they've arrived at conclusions independently, even when you've invisibly guided the process. By understanding psychological reactance, you learn to lead without appearing to lead. Perhaps the ultimate form of Nietzschean influence. The concept of selective attention allows for powerful nonverbal reinforcement of desired behaviors. What you choose to focus on through eye contact, body orientation, or engagement shapes interactions more effectively than explicit instructions ever could. By selectively giving attention to certain behaviors or statements while withholding it from others, you silently train others in how to interact with you. The concept of selective attention allows for powerful nonverbal reinforcement of desired behaviors. What you choose to focus on through eye contact, body orientation, or engagement shapes interactions more effectively than explicit instructions ever could. By selectively giving attention to certain behaviors or statements while withholding it from others, you silently train others in how to interact with you. This principle operates on the fundamental human desire for acknowledgement and connection. When someone receives your full, engaged attention after saying or doing certain things, they unconsciously learn to repeat those behaviors. Conversely, subtle withdrawal of attention briefly breaking eye contact or shifting body position, signals disapproval more effectively than verbal criticism. Mastering this technique requires developing awareness of your own attention patterns and learning to deploy attention strategically rather than reactively. By consciously directing your focus based on what you want to encourage rather than what automatically captures your interest, you gain enormous influence over group dynamics and individual behaviors. Controlled facial expressions represent perhaps the most nuanced aspect of nonverbal influence. Nietzsche understood that the face serves as our primary emotional broadcasting system, with micro-expressions often revealing thoughts we intend to keep hidden. By developing awareness and control of your facial expressions, you prevent unintended leakage of information while strategically communicating exactly what serves your purposes. Practice begins with awareness of your default facial responses to different emotional triggers. Many people unknowingly telegraph disappointment, surprise, or disagreement through brief facial reactions before composing themselves. By identifying these patterns through reflection or video recording, you can develop the ability to maintain neutral expressions when strategically advantageous. This doesn't mean adopting an expressionless mask. Rather, it involves developing the ability to choose which emotions you display rather than reacting automatically. Combined with careful observation of others' micro-expressions, this skill creates an enormous information asymmetry. You see more while revealing less. Nietzsche's insights into status signals provide another dimension of nonverbal influence. Humans instinctively read complex status information from how people carry themselves, their comfort with silence, their reaction speed, and countless other subtle cues. By understanding and controlling these signals, you can establish authority without explicit claims or demands. High-status behaviors often involve what's absent rather than present. Less nervous movement, fewer validation-seeking behaviors, reduced speech speed, and comfortable pauses. Notice how those perceived as authoritative rarely rush their movements, over-explain themselves, or fill silence with nervous chatter. These absences communicate more confidence than any assertive statement could. By gradually eliminating low-status tells from your behavioral repertoire, interrupting, speaking too quickly, excessive nodding, nervous laughter, fidgeting, you transform how others perceive you. This transformation happens below conscious awareness, creating a sense of natural authority that others respond to automatically. The principle of energy management provides a powerful but often overlooked tool for nonverbal influence. Nietzsche recognized that humans are constantly reading and responding to the energetic states of others, with calm, centered energy naturally drawing others into its orbit. By consciously managing your internal state, you affect everyone around you without saying a word. Consider how a single person's energy can transform the atmosphere of an entire room. Whether through frantic anxiety, calm confidence, or enthusiastic engagement, your energetic state creates ripple effects that others unconsciously mirror. By entering situations with intentionally cultivated energy, you silently set the tone for entire interactions. Developing this skill requires practices that build self-awareness and emotional regulation. Meditation, conscious breathing, or physical disciplines that connect mind and body. As you gain greater control over your internal state, you simultaneously increase your influence over the shared energetic environment of any group you enter. The strategic use of eye contact represents one of the most direct forms of nonverbal communication. Nietzsche understood that eye behavior reveals hierarchies, interest levels, and power dynamics more honestly than words ever could. By mastering nuanced control of when, how, and for how long you make eye contact, you communicate precisely what serves your purposes in any situation. Different eye contact patterns send distinctly different messages. Sustained, comfortable eye contact during listening signals respect and attention. Brief eye contact with a slight smile when entering a room acknowledges presence without seeking permission. Looking slightly above eye level during disagreements avoids triggering defensive reactions while maintaining your position. The true art lies in matching your eye behavior to your strategic objectives rather than defaulting to cultural habits or personal comfort. By observing how different eye contact patterns affect others and expanding your range of comfortable expressions, you develop a silent vocabulary more persuasive than words. The concept of rhythmic entrainment explains another dimension of silent influence. Humans naturally synchronize with the rhythms around them, speech patterns, movement times, even breathing rates. By consciously controlling your rhythms, you can lead others into synchronized states that create powerful rapport and receptivity without their awareness. In conversation, slightly slowing your speech rate often causes others to match your tempo, simultaneously calming the interaction and giving your words more weight. Similarly, deliberate, measured movements tend to slow others' physical actions, creating a more considered atmosphere. These adjustments happen below conscious awareness, but dramatically affect how messages are received. Masters of this technique can shift group energy by changing their own rhythmic patterns, whether calming an agitated situation or energizing a stagnant one. Controlling tempo offers a way to guide others without explicit direction. This represents Nietzschean influence at its most subtle, invisible yet undeniable. As we conclude this exploration of Nietzsche's principles for silent influence, remember that these techniques derive their power from profound understanding of human psychology, rather than manipulative intent. The philosopher viewed social dynamics as a complex game where awareness itself constitutes the ultimate advantage. By seeing more clearly what others miss, you naturally gain influence, whether you actively seek it or not. Implementing these principles requires patience and consistent practice. Begin with heightened observation before attempting control. Watch for these patterns in others, noticing how effective communicators unconsciously apply these techniques. Gradually incorporate them into your own interactions, focusing on one aspect at a time until it becomes natural. The ultimate goal extends beyond tactical advantage to something Nietzsche valued more highly: authentic self-expression through complete understanding. When you truly comprehend the hidden dimensions of human interaction, you gain not just the ability to influence others, but also freedom from unconscious manipulation yourself. In this liberation, you find what Nietzsche might call the true power: not domination over others, but mastery over yourself.